Hello and welcome to your Newsmax Daily for Labor Day Monday, September the 1st, 2025, and welcome to yet another new month. The last time Labor Day, the first Monday of September, was this early in the month was all the way back in 2014, more than 10 years ago. It won't happen again until 2031. In fact, next year, Labor Day won't happen until the 7th. The very first Labor Day, as you may know, was celebrated with a parade in New York City on September 5th, 1882, making it one of the nation's oldest holidays, thanks to President Grover Cleveland. The financial markets are closed today. The post office, federal offices, state offices, schools, and banks all closed in observance of the holiday, and I hope you have the day off and are not laboring. We had a fantastic start to the college football season over the weekend, capped off by a thriller in Miami last night as the Hurricanes beat Notre Dame, and a terrific NASCAR race as well in Darlington last night with Chase Briscoe winning the Cookout 400 for the second consecutive year. And breaking news this morning, a massive earthquake struck Afghanistan while you were sleeping. Reports say more than 800 people have already been confirmed dead. More than 2,000 are reported to be injured. This according to the Taliban government, and a few hundred people are missing. The mountainous terrain there in Afghanistan making rescue efforts very difficult. This will be a big story throughout the day. There was a big political summit this weekend, and you didn't see or hear too much about it, probably because it didn't pit Democrats against Republicans, and most of the media was too busy conjuring up speculation on President Trump's health, which he addressed on Truth Social last night, writing, "Never felt better in my life," in all caps. The summit I'm talking about is taking place in China. I mentioned it last week, and now that it's front and center, other people may be talking about it later today. But China's President Xi hosted Russian President Vladimir Putin and North Korean's leader Kim Jong-un in something called the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the SCO Summit. North Korea and China are both aiding Russia in its war against Ukraine, right? Later this week, China is having a big military parade to commemorate its victory over Japan in the Second World War. Sort of like the parade we had in Washington, celebrating the country's military. Putin and Kim Jong-un will be there for that celebration, and India's Prime Minister Modi is also there. Modi, who buys oil from Russia and just recently sat down with Trump to try and get his tariffs lowered, will be sitting down with President Xi, President Putin, and Kim Jong-un. What do we make of this? Are they talking about ending the war in Ukraine, stopping their support, or vowing to help Putin continue the fight against Ukraine? Are they talking about importing more oil or other things, or attacking other countries, or maybe the United States? Who knows? There are no Western country leaders there. And back to Washington following a federal appeals court decision claiming the White House overstepped its authority with its global tariffs. The president Sunday posted on Truth Social that the country would be destroyed and our military powers would be obliterated if the tariffs were stopped. Let's start with Greg Kelly and a little recap of where things are at on this Labor Day weekend.
Ultimately, I'm always right.
He's got a point, doesn't he? I've always had confidence in him, even when things looked bleak. And things are looking anything but bleak right now. The hottest country in the world, you said it, everybody's happy, the economy's on the way up. We got girls on campus with those crazy sorority cheerleading videos all over the place. Look, not every day's a great day, but you can tell, right? There's some momentum here. And let's go through it. Some decent news. Actually, more than decent news. Take a look at this. $3.15 for a gallon of gas. That is the national average, according to our friends at Gas Buddy. And what was it during the middle of the Biden administration? $5.01 a gallon. That's what it averaged out as. And right now, as we go into this Labor Day weekend, I think this is the lowest Labor Day, in 5 years. Lowest. And everyone's going to be getting in the car and driving, or getting on a plane, or maybe hanging around home. or maybe being with you on the Friday before Labor Day. I'm so happy to be here, actually. How about that? This is the last Friday in August. Anyway, let's keep going. Travel costs are on the decline. Awesome. I know that firsthand. I just took a vacation. Mortgage rates hit 10-month low. Outstanding. What else do we have? Dow, S&P 500, they're notching new, fresh records. All right. And let's see, GDP, the gross domestic product, is shattering expectations. Look, the White House has put out this data, and it's great. I really do think so. And look at how hard he's been working. Look at this. This is just from August of 2025. All of these images. He's everywhere, all the time. You know, presidents don't do this, especially during August. Bill Clinton, yo, taking it easy, kicking it. And I think he liked Martha's Vineyard, or he liked anywhere. I like anywhere where the girls are. You know what I mean? How about W and that silly ranch of his and the fake cowboy hat? Remember that routine? Couldn't stand that guy. Sorry. I'm bitter. I'm bitter about Iraq and a bunch of other things. And he tried to stick it to Trump during the campaign, both campaigns, because Donald Trump hurt his little brother's feelings. Jeb Bush, though, quite frankly, has been coming around. Obama, he didn't like to work in August. No way. Is that Obama over there? Yeah, you can kind of, for all of his coolness, he doesn't wear casual clothes well. He always dressed like a fourth grader, in my opinion. Back to President Trump in August of 2025. Look at this. These scenes are all from this month, different days, and we could probably fill in about 40 more, including the trip to Alaska. Yeah, that was 2 weeks ago tonight, trying to bring an end to a war. How about that? Now, we skipped his most immediate predecessor, didn't we? Joe Biden. Now, Joe, like every politician, when he was campaigning for the job, I will not rest. I will not rest until we bring Medicaid for all, or I'm going to not rest until we, right? Not rest. Until, of course, he got the job. And what did he do? He rested.
I will not rest. And I mean this from the bottom of I will not rest. I promise I will do everything in my power. I will not relent. We're not going to rest. Today, on this January day, my whole soul is in this. Bringing America together, uniting our people, uniting our nation. I pledge to be a president who seeks not to divide, but unify. I'm going to do whatever it takes to make progress on the matters that matter most. I won't let you down. I'll always keep fighting for you, and many others will.
That was a summer weekday in 2023. He had the job, and he was still the nominee, even though I knew he was not going to be. 530 days spent on vacation, right? He lied to us, everybody. He said he was going to not rest, but he did. Coasted. Sleepy. Meanwhile, back to the hottest country in the world right now. Let's face it, over the past, look, there were some ups and downs. It is a miracle. We have to appreciate it. I know there are tough things going on, but President Trump was literally in jail. They tried to kill him, and then he became the 47th president of the United States. And that, in and of itself, doesn't receive enough attention and awareness, really, even from me. Look at that. 44th, Biden, right? And he's back. 45th and 47th, right? Yeah. It makes him kind of like, it makes Biden look very, very irrelevant and small. And the two bookend presidencies of President Trump, it's almost sweeter this way, that it came out this way. Granted, we would have missed a lot of war and a lot of heartache had he been cleanly reelected in 2020, but all right.
That's Greg Kelly, host of Greg Kelly Reports. Along with President Trump's sudden terminal illness, the Minneapolis church shooting that took the lives of 2 precious children and injured 18 others, along with the reaction to it, continued dominating the news throughout the weekend. This is Lidia Curanaj on Sunday Agenda, and I'm picking it up with her talking about the shooter's manifesto.
In one entry, the crazed trans killer blamed transitioning and smoking marijuana for his violence. One line read, "Gender and weed effed up my head. I wish I never tried experimenting with either." despite 0.9% of the nation's population identifying as transgender. The majority of recent organized, methodical mass shootings have been perpetrated by trans people. You won't hear that in the media, but that's the truth. Trans mass murderers now exposing how radical left policies kill. Literally, these people on your screen, they are confused. They are also mentally ill. They're suffering from gender dysphoria, among other mental disorders. And rather than giving them the psychological help they need, they're given cross-sex hormones, even surgeries that further destroys them. Can you imagine if a child was suffering from anorexia and we gave him or her liposuction, diet pills? That would sound like madness, but that's what we're doing to these people that think they're trans. And now, being trans, it's trendy. It's like a social contagion. Over 3% of high school students, 3% across the nation now identify as transgender. This according to the CDC. This growing health crisis now under investigation. Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. asking why mass shootings are happening at schools and churches and only seem to be happening here in the United States. And it's not because of our gun laws either.
It's happening in our country. It's not happening around the world. And there are many other countries that have comparable levels of guns that we have in this country. We had comparable levels in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and people weren't doing that. Something changed, and it dramatically changed human behavior. And one of the culprits we need to examine is whether the fact that we are the most over-medicated nation in the world, and that a lot of those are psychiatric drugs that have black box warnings on them that warn of suicidal and homicidal ideation.
So what we have here is a perfect storm that's now metastasized across our nation. Leftist ideology mixed in with psychotropic drugs and children being raised in godless homes. Westman's own weapons showing his hatred for God. He wrote on some of them, "Where is your God?" He was even seen on video shooting a target of Jesus Christ right there. Also in his rambling, disturbing manifesto, Westman appears to portray himself as a demonic figure. Look at that picture right there, complete with horns, as if this is what he saw when he looked in the mirror at himself. Yet the leftist media refuses to acknowledge the following facts: that giving high levels of hormones to developing minds is dangerous and even deadly, and that anti-Christian bias is spreading across our nation. Just listen to this former D.C. chief of Homeland Security and Intelligence deny those facts right here on CNN.
I believe that calling this or investigating this as an attack against Catholics, I believe, is a little disingenuous, and it plays into the far right's narrative about Christians being under attack in this country.
We are under attack. I mean, hello. And it's a good thing that guy's a former intelligence officer, because he is dead wrong. The Family Research Council finding that since 2018, there has been a 730% increase of violence against Christian churches across the United States in 2024 alone. 730%. Someone educate that guy. Meantime, the New York Times calling the motive for the Minnesota shooting a mystery. Of course it's a mystery, because the leftist media also hides the fact that the words "kill Trump" were written on Westman's weapons. The media also hiding this from the public, that Westman's manifesto also showed the trans flag. The trans flag with a rifle with the words "defend equality." And the mayor of Minneapolis, like many Democrats, he also needs a hefty dose of reality.
Anybody that is going to use this as an opportunity to villainize our trans community or any community has lost touch with a common humanity. We got to be operating not out of hate for any group, but out of a love for our children.
You know what, Mayor Fry? Hate is the word I would use to describe what these trans killers have done. And let's be clear. I for one, do not hate the trans community. I think most of you sitting at home, you don't hate somebody you don't know. I hate the people, though, who made them. Their doctors, their therapists, their surgeons doing this, mutilating young children, and also the elected leaders and their trans sanctuary policies, right? And of course, the social justice warriors. You know those people I'm talking about. It's the woman at the grocery store, your liberal Facebook friends posting the flag, they're posting the stickers. They all think that they're so much better than us, right? So morally superior to people like me and you. They call us conspiracy theorists, right? When we said that this trans agenda would be fatal and it would lead to insanity. But we all know that all it takes for a conspiracy theory to become truth is simply the passage of time.
Newsmax host Lidia Curanaj on Sunday Agenda. And let's go back to Friday night for Rob Finnerty's interview with the always entertaining White House Deputy Chief of Staff, Stephen Miller.
All right, joining us now for more, White House Deputy Chief of Staff, Stephen Miller. Stephen, great to be with you again. This AP poll that came out a couple days ago, 81% of voters think there is too much crime in our cities. Only 1% say it's not a problem, which is an absurd number. Can I just get your reaction to Democrat governors like J.B. Pritzker and Gavin Newsom attacking you, attacking the National Guard, attacking Donald Trump, instead of attacking the crime in their actual cities and states?
It really is mind-blowing, Rob, that the Democrat Party has sided with the 1% of the country that thinks that crime is not a major problem in our big cities. I don't think I can ever think of an issue. Look, we know Democrats have chosen some 5% issues, some 10% issues, some 20% issues. They've chosen a 1% issue, Rob. So Governor Newsom, Governor Pritzker, the mayor of Chicago, Mayor Johnson, other leading Democrat officials have said that crime is not a problem. They are 1%ers on this issue. And by the way, it's not just crime, it's also the filth, the chaos, the disorder, the homeless camps, the migrant camps. You know, I grew up in Los Angeles. The city that I grew up in the 1980s and 1990s doesn't exist anymore. Everywhere you look, there's needles and druggies and criminals and vagrants, and people are getting robbed and mugged and murdered. You know, it's supposed to be this beautiful coastal community, and it's been turned into this mess of violence and trash and crime. I mean, literally the streets are littered. You know, I'm talking about trash. I mean, literal trash is strewn across the streets and never cleaned up. That's no way to live. Now, by contrast, look at what President Trump has done here in Washington, D.C. The streets have never been cleaner. Union Station, the crown jewel of the city, is pristine. Graffiti has been scrubbed off the walls and the bridges and the public and private buildings. And violence is lower than it has ever been in the recorded history of this city. Do you know, Rob, that historically in D.C., someone was murdered in this town every 48 hours? Every 48 hours, on average, someone has been murdered in D.C.
Not if you
until
read
President
the Washington
Trump declared
Post.
his crime emergency.
Yeah, the Washington Post. So we went 12 days without a homicide in the Capitol, which is the first time in more than a decade. The Washington Post this morning. How rare was D.C.'s 12 days homicide-free? Not as rare as Trump says. So no matter what Donald Trump does, the legacy media, we used to call them the mainstream media, they're not mainstream anymore. No matter what he does, they are against it. What does that mean in 14 and a half months when the Democrats are trying to win elections again?
Yes, well, look, very importantly, there have been, so the police have been on the street, the military's been on the street, federal cops have been on the street. There have been no public slayings, no public killings. Look, every homicide is tragic, but nobody out on the street, the way that has been happening in D.C. forever, has been slaughtered, has been killed. No stray bullets and any drive-by shootings have claimed any lives. No gang shootouts on the street. That has never happened before, and that is what President Trump has achieved. It is nothing short of miraculous. This issue is going to figure so prominently in the midterms because there's never been a starker contrast. Look, The Democrat Party, as an institution, has put all of its time, energy, money, emotion, and passion into promoting the interests of the criminal class of this country. An entire institution dedicated to gang members, street predators, violent offenders, and criminally illegal aliens.
Right.
And so their Democrat judges set them free. Democrat prosecutors won't put them in jail. Democrat nonprofits give these street killers free legal representation. Democrat politicians slash police, tie their hands, don't let them arrest anybody, don't let them jail anybody.
Yeah.
At every level of society, the Democrat Party sides with the criminal over the citizen. This is going to be the central issue coming up in the midterms. Do you want to live in safety, or do you want a reign of terror by criminals coddled, protected, loved, sheltered, shielded, and cared for by the Democrat Party?
Again, Deputy White House Chief of Staff Stephen Miller on Newsmax. And according to a spokesperson for Rudy Giuliani, the former New York City mayor is recovering, quote, tremendously. After a car accident in New Hampshire over the weekend, Giuliani fractured his vertebrae as well as suffering injuries to a leg and his arm. Giuliani was on a highway in New Hampshire when he noticed somebody on the side of the road that looked like they needed help. This, according to the spokesperson. He pulled over to call 911. It ended up being a domestic violence victim that needed help with police. He waited there until the police arrived, and then he got back in his car, got back on the highway, and that's when he was crashed into by another vehicle. So we certainly wish Rudy well and a speedy recovery. The stock markets are closed today, as I mentioned, but one highlight of the week on Wall Street, or the highlight of the week, will be Friday's big jobs report. With the Federal Reserve rate cut looming this month, the jobs data will be very, very closely dissected after President Trump fired the commissioner of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the BLS, following last month's weak job report and accusations by Trump that her data was rigged. That will be on Friday. The first Friday of every month is when we get the jobs report, also known as the non-farm payroll report from the Labor Department. According to the White House calendar, President Trump has no scheduled events today. But with the earthquake in Afghanistan, the summit in China, Xi, Putin, Kim Jong-un, and Modi, as well as all the weekend talk about his demise, which is really kind of funny considering the media didn't care about Joe Biden's health whatsoever for 4 years. I certainly wouldn't be surprised if we hear from the president at some point today. And Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem saying that she's canceling hundreds of FEMA contracts after DOJ found billions in waste, fraud, and unnecessary spending within the agency. By the way, whatever you do today, you may want to grab a Powerball ticket or two. Once again, as unbelievable as it is, there was no matching ticket on Saturday night's numbers. So tonight's jackpot is more than $1 billion. That's worth $3, right? All right. Keep up with the news and any breaking developments throughout the day on Newsmax N2 and at Newsmax.com. Also, make sure you're streaming on Newsmax Plus so you're getting all of your favorite shows with all your favorite hosts and all of the expert analysis as well. The news starts now every morning, 6 a.m. Eastern with Alex Kramer, Wake Up America Early Edition, followed by Wake Up America, National Report, Newsline at noon with Bianca, American Agenda, straight through Rob Schmidt tonight, Finnerty, Greg Kelly reports, The Right Squad. There's Todd Starnes, Ed Henry, John Bachman, and much, much more. I'm Tony Marino. Enjoy the rest of the holiday weekend. Be safe and keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Information. Truth. Is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.